So here we are, session 4 and the final session of our intuitive pet parent workshop together. As of this week, Bruce is officially in hibernation, at least at the time of our recording together. I don't know where he'll be if you're watching this a little or much later, but for now he is tucked in for his big winter sleep. Pearl, as you can see, is still wide awake and eager to co-host. Yeah, he said, I don't really need you. I don't really need a large featherless co-host, but I let you come along. Yeah, just in case I need any neck feather scratches or any evening rice or any of my special scratches, or just to be told how cute I am about 500,000 zillion times a day. Yeah, Mom. Okay, and we are so delighted to be here with you. You have been hanging in here with us for 4 weeks now. And isn't it amazing how quickly the time goes and how much we have learned together? So just a little recap. You now know the difference between your thoughts, your emotions, and your intuition, what I like to call your vibration or your vibes. You know the biggest barrier to sending and receiving messages with your pets, which of course is your own and my own rational and oh so and data obsessed left brain. And you understand more about, how your unique pet lives and moves and interacts with the world through their unique body and senses. And, no matter what species of animal you're caring for, there is no doubt that there are some very important differences to be aware of in terms of inhabiting their body versus inhabiting our body, the human body, the Homo sapien body. And of course, you understand how when you focus your awareness and your attention on your pet and you take the time to clear your mind, to clear the distractions out of your life, to clear your space so that you can really just easily and safely, you can drop your pen, drop present, then this builds your compassion and your empathy, which I like to call the gateway drugs if you're trying to open up your pet parent intuition. So best kind of drugs to have, in my opinion. And we've done several fun activities as we've spent time focusing on our pets through these last 4 weeks. You've learned how to sense their energy, even by noticing, how your space feels different if your pet is in the room or in the house or in a different part of their enclosure or their habitat, as opposed to when they're not there. And of course, last week, then we learned 2 of the most common ways our pets will change their communication, their body language, even where they place their body in our space, in our house, how they use our space, their house. Anyone who's ever dealt with, what they call inappropriate elimination certainly knows this firsthand. But these are, of course, mirroring and modeling. And that is a lot to take in less than a month's time. So I just want you to know that just by hanging in here, really stretching your mind, making some new neural connections, giving your right brain a chance to weigh in and really participate in the conversation, growing your intuitive skills. Truly, you are my hero. This work is my passion. It really feels like, I've said this before about different facets of this work. It really feels like somehow everything is kind of coming together. And it's a real privilege and an honor to share community with you and to talk about something that really I feel it's a key portal for changing our relationship with with our fellow species here on this planet. Our planet needs our help. The animals need our help, and the more that we can tune in, deepen our intuitive connection with not just our own pets, but with all of the other species we share our world with, share our space with, the more we will care, the more we will notice, because we're giving ourselves permission, we're giving ourselves a little time and a little space to notice and to marvel and to wonder again. And that lights us up. I know it's lit me up from the inside out. In developing my intuitive skills as an animal communicator and a pet intuitive and a Reiki master communicator, I have felt like parts of me, hi sweetie pie, you singing the song of his people, right? To your sparkly parrot and your straws. I have really felt like, parts of me have turned on that I now believe were always there, but I never knew they were there. And that's the potential that this work has, that this dedication and this persistence to just carving out some time and space to just drop into that wonder and just marvel at our differences and allow those interesting differences to lead us back to our similarities. Then we start to light up from the inside out, and then people around us start to notice. And the more we care, the more intelligently we can speak about the connection that we have with animals and nature. The more important it is to us, the more it will get other people in our circles interested, and the more they will care. And the truth is caring about another being, caring about nature, caring about our world, that is an unstoppable force for positive change. So I just want to say, please don't take it lightly when I say that you're my hero, and I'm grateful, because I truly mean it from the bottom of my heart. My connections with my animals have been my lifeline. They are my life now, always have been. Yeah. There's nothing like having a best friend with feathers or shell or fur or fins or scales, or, I mean, you got to be a pretty special person. And, and I say this with full humility, but to attract and earn and hold the love of an animal in your life. And so I want you to know you're pretty special. And this work that you're doing, this time that you're carving out, when there are so many other things competing for your time and attention, it's pretty special. So with that said, we're going to dive into session 4 of our Intuitive Pet Parent Workshop as he bursts into song again. And we're going to talk about the number one most important thing you can do to boost your intuition when it comes to your own pets, when it comes to maybe animals that you're fostering, animals that you rescue, animals that you rehabilitate, animals that you share your space with, wildlife. If you really want to turbocharge the intuition you have when it comes to our interspecies communication and receiving and sending messages with your pet, you must be in your body. And you're probably listening to me right now going, seriously, like all that build up, and you got to tell me I'm in my body? Like, hello, I'm here, like right now, like what other choice do I have? But I would challenge that and ask, are you really in your body? Are you really aware of how you're moving? Are you really fully present to your own body's needs? Are you fully aware of the messages flowing back and forth between, let's say, your feet and the top of your head, and from one hand to the other, and from your gut brain to your brain to your heart brain, and back and forth through all the nerves and the synapses and all the cells of your body? Are you fully conscious of your sympathetic and your parasympathetic nervous system? Are you truly aware of how you're feeling in each and every moment? And what triggers your fight or flight, your sensory survival instinct, and that whole system? And what calms it down? And the reason this is so important is because your animal is. Animals are always this aware of being in their bodies. This is why animals seem to communicate with us so clearly. Like we talked a little bit last week about how if your animal's staring at you a lot, and you're kind of like, you're up in your head and you're trying to figure it out, they're using their body to send you what is clearly a very pointed message. And it feels like as pet parents, sometimes it just takes us forever, right? He says, yes, Mom, it takes you forever sometimes to get it. And this is because we're up in our heads. I mean, yeah, sure, we're home in our body, but our body is like, it's not a partner for us. It's more like our Uber driver, or our Lyft driver. It does whatever we want it to. We say, oh, hey, I want to get up and go to the refrigerator, and it gets up and goes to the refrigerator. We say, I want to go to the bed and sleep. It gets up and it takes us to the bed, and it does what we want. But at least speaking from my own experience and those of many folks that I've talked with over the years in different forms or fashions, a lot of times we really don't think about, what our body needs and giving back to it to make sure that it can serve us. And animals do this, because animals, unlike, non-human animals do this, say that, because non-human animals have never left the daily greater food chain of life. To be out of your body and up in your head, even for a moment, probably means you're going to end up plated and served. You're not going to make it from breakfast to lunch, let alone lunch to dinner. So animals are very sensory and we're very intellectual. And so this is why it sounds like such a small thing, but the more you can be present and get in your body, the more clearly you're going to be able to receive your animal's messages on a sensory level and decode them without a lot of interference, especially from your left brain, and be able to send messages back and to really build this intuitive bond with your pet. So you might be wondering at this point, well, I think I'm in my body. I look down, here I am, how can I tell if I really am? And as a longtime lover of yoga, I've practiced yoga since I was in my teens. And so I can say this for a fact, and my yoga teacher is always saying, there's nothing like a balancing pose to really show you your inner state. And so while I'm not going to actually do this with you, because if I move on the Zoom, you're going to be staring at some other random part of me, we can try it out. We can do a little balancing act right now. And of course, I want to preface this by saying, if you have any, vestibular problems, or you feel vertigo, or you aren't feeling well, or you're recovering from something, then maybe don't do this. But as long as you feel well, and you feel, healthy and balanced, enough to do this, just go ahead and stand up just right now. Just stand up from wherever, or if you are walking around, just stop. And obviously don't do this if you're driving, but whenever you can, just stand up, stand up straight and tall. Imagine if you know yoga, imagine you're in mountain pose. If you don't, just mountain pose is essentially standing straight with your feet flat on the ground, and keeping your head in alignment over your pelvis and your pelvis over your hips and feet. And so you can just stand up and now try to lift one foot. Just lift it up. See what happens. Start maybe by lifting just a toe, just so that only your big toes still on the ground, and then maybe lift it up to ankle height and see if you're still steady. Are you? Try lifting it up to knee height to make a 90-degree angle with your knee. Still steady? Need to make some adjustments? If you're still steady, try, making some big circles with your leg at a 90-degree angle, one way and then the other, and see how steady are you? Are you starting to wobble? Are you falling down? If you find that you're steady on one side, then let's try changing sides. Do it. Most of us, I'm not assuming you did this, but most of us will start on our dominant side. For me, that would be my right side, because I'm right-handed. And I tend to be steadier. I'm never going to claim to be super steady, but I tend to be steadier on my dominant side. So try changing sides. Do it on your non-dominant side and see if you are more wobbly. You might surprise yourself and find out that you are less wobbly on that side very frequently, because the two sides of our body are controlled in many ways by different sides of the brain, it can feel very different to do a balancing pose on one side of the body versus the other. And again, my teacher always says we should never expect the two sides of our body. We should never expect the same experience on one side of our body as we do on the other. And because they're very different energies. And so this is the fastest and easiest way to find out if you are actually at home in your body, especially when you're trying to, wrestle with, or you're worried about, or you're just aware of feeling like your intuition is, or your gut instinct is saying that my pet wants to tell me something, or I think there might be something wrong with my pet, or something is going on and I need to tune in. Start with a balancing pose. And you might want to try doing this as well when you find yourself kind of stressed out or anxious or worried or just distracted, or you feel like, incoming message, but you just can't get present enough to receive it. Try a balancing pose first, because it will force you to drop whatever you've been ruminating about in the past, or anything coming up in the future, or anything you're worried that might come up in the future, and be here in the present, in your body right now. And so that's something I do a lot. I do it almost every morning when I do my yoga. And I also really like to do it before I do an animal communication session or an animal Reiki session, because it helps me be fully present for the other person and of the greatest service to this pet and parent team. So, being fully in your body, you're going to be able to sense where your body is in space. You're going to know where your head is. You're going to know where your shoulders and your arms and hands are. You're going to know where your hips are. You're going to know where your pelvis is in relationship to your shoulders and your hips. And you're going to be able to distribute your weight evenly. You're going to be able to find your optimal center of balance, and be as still and as steady as you can. Of course, we never mean to be out of our body, but as I talked about a little bit about last week, pretty much almost everything in our early learning system, including formal education, maybe that's changing a little bit now with homeschooling and alternative schools and things like that. But I know when I was growing up, you go through decades of schooling, and it's really all focused on the left brain. Just get up out of our, in fact, the first thing to go usually when the school system is, dealing with cutbacks or too many snow days or whatever it is physical education, the arts, anything that focuses on the sensory body and the right brain. And so what happens is we are actually trained to leave our bodies and live up in our heads. And another thing that often happens to people is, and because most of us who are sensitive to animals, who are highly intuitive, who acted to adopt or to bring into their families highly sensitive animals, a lot of us have that we are just so sensitive emotionally, we're so fine-tuned that we just experience life in a very tangible way that can almost be painful sometimes, it's not always an either or situation. We've gone through some trauma, and that's why we are so open to the unconditional love that animals bring into our lives. And what happens, and a lot of us too, it's kind of a combination of the snowball effect, because then when we get in school, if we're highly sensitive, or if we've had any trauma, or if we're just like super interested in animals and nature, and everybody else is, seems to be wired differently, then we can get a lot of pushback, like, why are you the way that you are? Why aren't you the way you're supposed to be? And like, why aren't you like all the other students? Why aren't you like all the other kids? Why aren't you like all the other employees? Whatever it is. And that can be traumatic. And what tends to happen when we experience any kind of trauma is just call dissociation. We kind of leave home. We kind of leave our bodies and we go to what, therapists might call a safe space, or we just kind of check out. And I know this because I did it for years before a friend of mine said, hey, it feels like when I'm talking to you, you're never home. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think I know what that, because I remember, learning about it in school, and I think I'm doing that. And it's called dissociation. And a lot of people do that when they've gone through trauma. And so I do know this very, very well. And when you dissociate, it is a feeling of kind of, you have a cocoon or a bubble around you, because you're kind of floating around up in your head. You're not in your body anymore, because maybe that doesn't feel like a good neighborhood anymore to be in. And so, training in animal communication, training in energy healing, training in Reiki, as a Reiki practitioner, has really, and training in yoga and moving every day, has really helped me to learn to stay in my body, even when I'm feeling strong emotions, even when I'm worried about my pets, even when I'm worried about the state of our world, even when I've read something or watched something or heard something that really upsets me, or, there's something traumatic going on, or I'm just feeling really strong emotions. I'm learning to stay in my body. And the more I learn to do that, my incentive is I have better connection and better communication with those of you who are just listening to this as you're hopping around or driving or whatever. That was the sound of belly kisses for Pearl. But the more I can stay in my body, the more I am able to sense and receive messages from my own animals and from wild nature. There's a lot more stories about that, and we don't have time for today, but the more I can be present and really feel a part of the interspecies life going on around me. And so, it's just something to be aware of. It's, being affected by trauma is not, that's part of being human. I mean, we feel, we care, and it's going to happen. But essentially, when you're talking about being intuitive, it's kind of like you've got this whole gorgeous house to live in, but you lock yourself in one little room and you don't let yourself explore the rest of your space. And it's going to give yourself shine. So balancing postures are really good for that. We talked about some different breathing and movement that you could do in some of the earlier sessions. And I really encourage you to continue with that, and doing the meditation on your pet, because it really reconnects you with it's the antidote to any kind of trauma or upset, is unconditional animal, and they feel for you. And so all of these tools that we've been talking about really lead up to helping us feel safe and present enough to stay in our bodies. If we are not in our bodies, we are not going to be intuitive, no matter how much potential ability that we might have. So what I'd like to talk about now is this is not something that only Homo sapien animals go through. Our animals do too. Animals, yes, on the what we call the 5D level, or the soul or the spirit level, they are masters of unconditional love in a way that most Homo sapiens of us are not, because they live in their sensory bodies to a much greater degree, because they're wired that way, and because they have to in order to stay alive and kind of take care of themselves. But animals can also dissociate. They can also kind of wall themselves up in one little part of their bodies, one little aspect of themselves. And this is almost always a reaction to trauma. Sometimes it's a reaction to a health problem, but all of that is trauma: fear, trauma, health issues. You see it in a lot of male puppies and kittens. They grow up and, the animal is afraid of certain things. The animal cringes every time they are forced into a crate, every time they are, you know, taken out of a crate, anytime they see a person that reminds them of someone who harms them, anytime they, we had a dachshund once who would cringe every time he would, you know, we would try to get him in the car and he would just kind of cringe. We didn't know why. This was long before I knew that such a thing as animal communication was even possible. But we don't have to know why in order to observe it happening. And so that's the second piece of that, is that the more we can drop back down into our sensory body, the more we can be in our space, the more we can learn to be in our space and feel safe, that unlocks healing for our animals as well. Because whatever energy we're putting out, they're going to sense and pick up. And the more we can exude, we're comfortable in our bodies, if we're trusting of being in our sensory bodies, of living fully in our world, the more they are going to feel permission and feel safe to do the same. The other thing I just want to mention is that a big part of that journey back into our bodies, you know, it can take time, whatever caused the trauma, you know, maybe it happened in a moment or maybe it happened over time, but the effect has definitely been cumulative over time. And so, you know, we can't heal what has built up over time in a moment. You know, we can see significant growth, but typically it will take, you know, some body work, some energy healing work, things like EFT tapping, acupressure, depending on your species, massage, chiropractic or touch, energy healing using, you know, Reiki, scalar wave are two of my favorites that I use with animals, crystal therapy, essential oils, doing the EMF blocking. There's lots of methods to kind of lift and dissipate the trauma and those stuck places in the body where we hold our trauma, where our animals hold their trauma. And you know, of course, we learned last week about mirroring and modeling, and sometimes we even, I shouldn't even say sometimes, oftentimes we attract into our lives animals who have gone through similar things to what we've gone through. And that's where becoming more intuitive and boosting that bond of unconditional love, that open flow of intuitive and sensory communication is going to be the source of the courage, the brave that we both need to heal, which is why so many people that I speak with in the animal communication sessions that I do say, you know, my pet has healed me, my pet has saved my life. And so often when I hear the full story, it turns out that it goes both ways, because that person maybe rescued that animal and saved that animal at a time when that animal was really in crisis. And so you can start to really see the full story come out of, you know, I just don't believe there are any accidents when two beings come together and choose to share space, and the animals are always choosing to stay with us, even if it doesn't feel like that. Even if we think, oh, well, you know, I put them in a cage or a crate or whatever, and they can't leave. Yes, they can. There's always a way if the animal doesn't want to stay. And we see that too a lot in the work as an animal communicator in the community. So understand, you know, there's always a reason. There's always mutual benefit, but typically we, the Homo sapien in the mix, are the ones who are kind of you know, doing a little remedial learning to kind of get up to speed and really tap in and understand the nature of our connection and why this particular animal, you know. So for instance, sometimes you know, our pets will come into our lives and develop like a health issue, for instance, or a behavioral issue or an emotional issue that forces us to get out our rigid mental ideas of, you know, what constitutes healing, what is legitimate, what has value. You know, of course, there's his is a great example. For, you know, Western veterinary medicine, there are certain modalities that are pretty common to Western people medicine. using medications, surgery, physical therapy, all kind of occupational therapy for service animals, all kinds of different things. There's tons of validity in that. But there's also a whole other side, which is the side I work on, which is what, unfortunately has been labeled alternative healing. And I like the word holistic much better. Animal communication, Reiki practice, doing essential oils, using crystals, scalar wave, all of the different things, the tools that we have are equally valid. And sometimes I've seen cases where, maybe a pet parent is really dialed into that Western approach and really like, oh, no, the woo stuff is like not legitimate, but their animal doesn't respond to any of the Western medical approaches. They try anything the veterinary suggests. Maybe they even have surgery. They have, very invasive testing. Nothing's working. And that person starts to become open because they'll do anything for their animal because they want so badly for their animal to feel better. And then those other techniques, they might add a lot of value. Their animal gets better. And suddenly the person has really pushed through that rigidity in the mind and is opening up to intuition on such a deep level. A lot of times this will happen if the pet parent is overworking themselves or not taking good care of their diet or their exercise or getting enough sleep or having a well-rounded life or seeking out a career or work situation that really feels good. The animal will start acting out, if you will develop a health issue, things like this. And there's a subtext, if you will, that this whole process of going through this with your animal will push you both into, and I don't really love the word push, maybe pull you both into a much deeper, richer space where your daily life and living of it feels so much better. It feels so much more like really living rather than just kind of existing from day to day. So the bottom line of all this is that intuition is always going to be a fully sensory experience. You're going to be using your imagination. You're going to be using the inspiration that your imagination gives you. And you're going to be funneling all of that into your senses to awaken your intuition. So everything is useful in your sensory body, your eyes, your ears, your taste buds, your sinuses, your skin. Think of your body like a cell phone tower that has unlimited radio frequencies, unlimited stations. It's constantly sending and receiving messages. And the more you're at home in your body, the more you're going to be able to receive them, the more you're going to be able to reply accurately, the better you're going to feel, and the more open you're going to be to trying whatever feels right. Even if your left brain mind is, I don't know about that, you're going to have the fuel that you need to override that and say, just give it a try. Just give it a try. So you can try, starting in the morning with a balancing posture by doing yoga or walking with, mindful walking with your dog, or for those of you who have a cat that likes walking with you, with your cat. Or I've seen, playtime with your pet, just meditating on your pet, just being with them. If you have limitations there, just set a timer every hour for a minute and just stand up and take a few deep breaths and get centered and ask yourself, how does my body feel? What temperature? Am I too warm? Am I too cold? Am I hungry? Am I thirsty? Do I have a lot of energy, or do I feel tired? And just do something to really get back in your body. And so this is really why I have chosen to land here for our final session. Not only is this going to be deeply beneficial for connecting with your animal on a daily basis and really building your intuitive pet parent radar, if you will, but it's also a great way to start resolving one of the biggest reasons that people contacted me for animal communication sessions, which is pet behavior problems. And of course, while we're not learning animal communication in this workshop, we're learning the building blocks, something every pet parent needs, whether you have any interest in actually becoming an animal communicator or not. And I certainly don't recommend deciding to become an animal communicator when you're in the middle of a crisis with your own pet. I wouldn't try that with my own pets if we're in a crisis either. But it's a great, boosting your intuition is going to benefit you in every way, in every area of your life, including and perhaps most importantly with your pets. So now we're going to shift. You understand kind of the whole context for why it's so important to be in your body and to be fully receiving, using all of your senses, very aware of how you're feeling, and very, very dialed into the energy coming in and the energy that you're putting out. So let's talk more about, now that you understand, because this is where your pet lives 24/7. They are in their body. They are ready to go. They wake up and they are like, they're in it and they're ready. And this is where behavior problems can come from. And because they're in it and they're ready to do their thing. And you're up in your head. And so a lot of what you see, maybe it doesn't make sense. Why is my pet doing that? It doesn't make sense to your rational brain, but it makes a lot more sense once you get back into your body, get into your right brain. So what we're going to talk about now is all in your homework, and your homework handouts or your activity handouts, if the word homework and screaming, this is all there for you. And so right now, I'd like you to just kind of listen to me and then go download the homework that will be in just click on the button and say download session 4 homework now, and it will walk you through this. So, I call the activity, what does my pet do all day? But you can think about it like one of those, there were a couple of movies that were really popular in the 80s and 90s where, like, the one I remember right now is a mother and her daughter crashed into each other and they switched roles and they had to like figure out how to get back. And so essentially for your homework activities, you're going to be pretending like you are your pet and they. So the activity has 2 parts. And the first part is just to write out your pet's daily routine. And I really mean daily routine, like every single detail on it. And pick a typical day, not a day when you're doing something unusual, like going to the vet or having a play date or something that, take your pet to work, something like that. Pick the normal, typical day as best you can. And, you do this over a few days so you can start filling in little things that you've missed. This is a particularly great thing to do to boost your intuitive pet parent skills because it actually recruits your left brain and puts it to work for your right brain and your body. So we're going to bring your left brain now into the equation and give it a job to do, which it loves. And this is going to be kind of to build a better life for you and your pet and start to troubleshoot behavior problems while there's still little tiny things that are just like your intuition is like, that's a little weird. And now you can stop and you can start this process and see what you're picking up and start to kind of troubleshoot before something starts to, snowball. So start in the morning, first thing, and really like look at what time, and what's going on, breakfast, their dinner meal, their evening routine, sleep, what's going on. Notice the flow of your animal day and write it out as much as you can. I know it's tempting to just kind of log it in your mind, and I do that a lot. But for this particular exercise, it's really good to have the notes on paper. And here's why. Because the second piece of this is I'm going to ask you to research what a typical day would look like if your animal was their wild equivalent. Now, let's say we're talking about a cockatiel like Pearl. More belly kiss soundtrack here for you. And let's say we're talking about a wild cockatiel. There's lots of information online. You can learn what a wild cockatiel's day is like. What would they do all day, every day? Would it change seasonally? Would it change based on the temperature or how much daylight there is? Does the animal live in alone or in a group or in a flock? Cockatiels during mating season, when it's warm and the daylight is long, they can live in flocks of, groups of 10, 20, 30, sometimes up to a few hundred birds all at once. They do everything together. So that really informs, a common behavior problem. And I put that in quotations because it really isn't. It's very natural to a cockatiel calling all day long and vocalizing all day. You're like, well, I can't get my cockatiel to stop screaming. And it's like, well, understanding wild cockatiel behavior, you can easily see how this species of bird is never alone, ever alone in the wild, and they are wired through hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of years to always be with others of their kind. And so it is extremely scary for a cockatiel to be alone, and they are always going to vocalize to see where their flock is. And if it's just you and your bird, that means they're vocalizing to find you. And so you can take a look at this, take some time and do some research and write down what a typical day would be like for your pet's wild equivalent. And for, I want to actually add a PS onto this, because for dogs, cats, horses, and a lot of common companion livestock, let's say like chickens, sheep, goats, you actually even going to want to take this activity a step further and look at differences between breeds. For instance, a German Shepherd is going to have a different energy level, instinctual likes and dislikes, prey drive, exercise and activity needs than a tiny little fluffy Maltese dog. So you also want to learn as much as you can about your specific breed of animal, if it applies to your pet, what the animal was bred for. Most of these animals are human-made versus natural, which means they kind of naturally occurred in the wild, like wild dogs and things like that. But even so, you want to find as much as you can, as much information as you can about the species and the breed, and start to put 2 and 2 together. So try to write out your pet's wild equivalent's daily schedule exactly as you can, and changes seasonally, things like that. Like, for instance, my box turtle Bruce, he hibernates all winter long, and learn about why that happens. And my red-footed tortoise Malty does not hibernate, and there's a reason for that. So you're really going to school and you're learning about your pet. And once you have these written out, maybe it's going to be 2 schedules if you have, let's say like a cockatiel, or it's going to be 3 if you have a dachshund. So you're writing out, your pet's schedule, your dachshund's, like our dachshund flashboard, and then I would write out his daily schedule. Then I would write out his wild equivalent, which the closest would be a wild canid or a wolf. And then I'd be writing out everything I can learn about how dachshunds became dachshunds, why, everything about the evolution of the breed and what their job is and why they were bred. And that thing. And now we're going to put it all together. And I know this feels very left brain. So your left brain is probably like, and your right brain's like, oh, okay, this sounds like a lot. This really sounds like real homework, but you're going to love it because it is a fantastic way to not only diagnose pet behavior issues, or is my pet doing that, but it's also a great way to simply, and even if you have 0 behavior problems, it's a great way to find extra enrichment for your animal. It is you think about it, our animals are so tuned into us. Pearl is like, I'm in the world. I love that, except when it's inconvenient and I don't time to be his partner 24/7, because as his species, cockatiels typically mate for life. They are very faithful. Their love language is love, and they're very cuddly and affectionate, and they're very vocal and social. And so, you know, I love that until I have to get on a Zoom call, or I have to, go outside and do something. And then suddenly it becomes less convenient. And so the more I learn about his species, the more I can put things in place to help him through those moments when my schedule is incompatible with his basic needs. And so he's not in crisis when I'm suddenly absent. And, and there's just every benefit from that: less stress, healthier, happier, longer lived. There's everything good in taking a couple hours to do this kind of work and get to know your animal and really immerse yourself in your pet's world and DNA and history and species history, the way they immerse themselves in you. And so, you can't, and really understanding those wild instincts that lead to what us modern first world pet parents like to call behavior problems. Our animals turn those off. There is such a thing as epigenetics, where an animal can kind of transmute them over time, and even over species time. I mean, you look at dogs and they have these special muscles in their face and their eyes, so they can make puppy dog eyes. Wild wolves don't have those muscle sets. They can't make those faces. Dogs have literally evolved as a species that's so bonded to Homo sapiens that their facial structure has changed so they can communicate with us better. So this is a way we can start to give back, and we can return the favor. And so, even if your pet you feel is wildly happy and healthy, there's always something more we can do. And this is such a huge love language, and we'll get into animal love languages much more later. That's my real passion, and I'll be developing quite a number of activities around that. But for now, this is our building block. This is one of the primary love languages that we can share with our animals, with our pets. It's going to boost our intuition. It's going to help us feel closer with our animal. It's going to reduce the so-called problem behaviors that just add stress and drama and trauma into both of our lives. And it's going to be a building block to help us feel more alive. I mean, I feel so much more alive in my body, in my senses, caring for animals, working as an animal communicator, Reiki master practitioner, and immersing myself in nature has given me permission to live, to wake up at a new level and feel honestly more alive, more vibrantly alive, and more tuned in and more connected, more like everything else around than anything else I've ever done in my life. And I've got five decades under my belt now, and so that is saying something. I would love to hear what your experiences are. Of course, this is our final session together, but you know how to find me, and just save the emails. You can respond at any time and let me know. And know that it has been my joy and my honor to be your guide for this first ever 4-part intuitive pet parent series. I really hope you enjoyed these workshops. If you did, I would love to know. Please tell your pet parent friends and spread the word. I truly believe that the more intuitive pet parents we have in the world, the more happy pets there will be. And the side effect is that the more happy people there will be, and the more we'll have to talk about that's really positive and uplifting. We won't get immersed in what often feel like dead-end conversations about the state of the world or politics or healthcare or whatever. And we're going to have so much to talk about. As I know for me, the thing I love to talk about most is my animals. And being a part of the animal communication and energy healing communities, it helps me meet people who have those same passions. So I don't feel like a weirdo anymore when I want to talk about my animals and nature all the time, because I'm in a community of people where that's how we like to spend our time. That's how we like to spend our words and our communication energy. And as a PS, like just, I'm going to leave this with you as something to ponder. If you have enjoyed this 4-part series and you want more, you want to dive deeper, first thing is there's a lot more to learn. If you want to dive deeper, if you want to fly higher, there is no limit. There is a ton to learn. And as I learn more, I want to learn more. And so if you can resonate with that, I want you to know that there is a lot more, and I have a lot more to share with you. I've never done anything like this before, but I am going to be launching an intuitive pet parent masterclass soon. I promise you it's going to be super fun, especially if you've enjoyed this workshop, and, you know, hopefully it's been, you know, not time intensive, but colorful and interesting, and something to look forward to. You know, whenever you're able to fit it in every day, and you will learn a lot. The things I plan to cover are techniques that, you know, many of my colleagues charge hundreds of dollars for standalone workshops, and it doesn't have to be that complicated. It's not to say that there isn't. I've taken those pricey standalone workshops, and, you know, but sometimes it feels like there are so many options. How do you even know what to try, because you don't even really know what's out there? And so with this Intuitive Pet Parent Masterclass, I'm going to give you a menu, and you can see what resonates, and you can see where I really want to learn more about that. That sounds fascinating. Okay, maybe I'll defer that until later. I want to start here. So I'm just going to give you a whole wealth of my favorite well pet techniques and strategies, ways to work with our animals to build our bond. And honestly, for a very nominal cost that I truly from my heart hope you will find completely affordable. And I just want you to know that I would love to have you. So please, you know, hit reply if you're to any one of the emails for the Intuitive Pet Parent Workshop, and let me know if you're in, or if you want to know more. Soon you'll be receiving all the details of the Pet Parent Master Program, and I so hope that you will join me. And for now, I just want to say thank you again for taking this trip with me, for being part of the first ever of something that a project here is just all, it's inside my heart. It's my whole heart. And being a part of it means the world to me. And knowing that you have that love, all that you just want to see what is possible. Like, how close can I really feel with my pet? How in tune can we really be? How deep is our bond? How what's possible? This is one way to explore those questions and start to really feel what's really there between you, the quality of the love that's really there between you and your interspecies family. So, of course, it would be my honor to work with you if you would like to schedule a one-on-one session to talk with your animal, whether your animal has crossed over or is with you now. If you're thinking about adding a new animal to your family, whether it be your first pet or you have an interspecies family already, if you are experiencing some of those, you know, why does my pet do that behaviors, or you just would like to ask your pet some questions and find out what they have to say, find out what your animal thinks about you, or maybe guidance and wisdom they have for you, or if your animal could benefit, and I believe all animals can, from Reiki and scalar wave, let me know, because we could schedule a session, and it can really help animals who are going through illness, surgery, end of life transitions, adjustments into a new family, helping to heal trauma from past issues or being rehomed. Yeah, I would love to be a part, and would be my honor and privilege to contribute to whole pet wellness and interspecies family happiness. So, you know where to find me, animallovelanguages.com. More importantly, you know where to find my angel, my sidekick Pearl, and of course Precious Malty and Brave Bruce and Wild and Woolly Flash Gordon and the whole crew. So I look forward to hearing from you. I send you blessings from my heart and all my love. Okay, bye for now.